When America and Vietnam went to war, the American troops were clueless on how to fight off an enemy who camouflaged themselves in the jungle. In an effort to retaliate against this invisible enemy, the U.S. manufactured around 15 different herbicides. One of the more well-known herbicides was given the name Agent Orange. Agent Orange is a defoliant designed to destroy plant life in crops. U.S. aircraft such as the C-123 were deployed to spray this herbicide over all of Vietnam so that the Viet Cong troops could no longer hide in the jungle and also so that their food sources would be demolished. Agent Orange got its name from the 55-gallon orange-striped barrel the substance was stored and transported in. The plan to drop these herbicides over Vietnam was called Operation Ranch Hand. The first official mission took place January 13, 1962. Operation Ranch Hand was then extended to include parts of southern and eastern Laos in December of 1965. The herbicide program reached its peak when over 1.5 million acres of herbicide were sprayed in 1967. 34% of all areas were sprayed more than once. In October of 1971, the U.S. stopped all the spraying of herbicides. By then, there were already 20 million acres of herbicide sprayed. When Agent Orange was sprayed across Vietnam, it left a white blanket over forests, crops, as well as the ground. The air was also polluted by the spraying of this defoliant. In an interview from April 13, 1966, a Vietnamese man revealed that each person in his unit was given a tube of antiseptic medicinal powder, a bar of soap, and some magnesium permanganate to protect themselves from the herbicide. They were also given a face towel, so if they happened to pass by an area where the spraying was occurring, they could wet the towel and cover their faces. In another interview with a different Vietnamese man, he explained how the spraying operations worked. 2 Dakotas, supported by jets, did the spraying. I think airplanes had a pump of some kind, and the sprays were spread all over. As soon as the trees were touched by the sprays, they dried up. Not only did the spraying kill off plant life to expose the Viet Cong troops, it also affected the crops and cattle and led to a major food deficiency. As part of that interview, the individual was asked if they blamed the Americans for destroying their crops. His response was, "The Americans destroyed their crops and this was the same as attacking them. How could you expect the people not to blame the Americans? Ruining their food is the same as killing them." Considering Agent Orange contained TCDD, a form of dioxin, it affected many American troops as well as Vietnam citizens. As part of the research conducted, we were able to interview Dr. Russell Betts, who was a civilian contractor with RAND Corporation and conducted extensive interviews with the Vietnamese villagers, Viet Cong, and U.S. government and military officials. Dr. Russell Betts informed us that he was one of the people that helped get compensation for the veterans of the Vietnam War that were affected by Agent Orange.
We were just there to try to figure out how this kind of a war could have happened, and why it had gone on as it had, and how it looked so clear that it was not going to ever be a good war. So we were doing it on the contract. We did it through it isn't that they wanted us in particular, but I was working for a company which took care of things like this for areas in the world that there was troubles of some kind, trying to figure out what's going on in places.
He subsequently wrote a paper that was one of the key documents used by veterans in their class action lawsuit to get compensation for the health consequences they suffered as a result of exposure to Agent Orange. This document, titled An Evaluation of Chemical Crop Destruction in Vietnam, was co-authored by Dr. Betts and Frank Denton. and was deemed highly classified by the U.S. government and was unable to be viewed for 13 years. Russ shared his experiences with us, and we were able to see the stacks and stacks of the interviews he conducted, over 8,000 of them, that he had kept hidden away for many years due to fear that the government would try to confiscate them. During our interview, he stated he had shared this documentation with less than 6 others because he had been afraid of what would happen if we talked about it.
Talk about it again.
You are some of the 4 or 6 people in the world who have got me to talk about this topic.
And because it was so painful for him to revisit and to think about it.
I won't go back to it. I haven't ever gone back to it.
Recently, Dr. Betts had a chance encounter with a Vietnam veteran from Chama, New Mexico, named Amarante Artero Casillas. He had the heartbreaking duty of retrieving the bodies of his fallen comrades by crawling through the foliage and trees. He is currently suffering from stomach cancer and endocrine disorders directly associated to his exposure to Agent Orange while performing his assigned duties. There are over 20 different cancers associated with Agent Orange and even more birth defects. The government tried to deny any affiliation with Agent Orange by withholding all documents and denying any knowledge of the fact that Agent Orange was actually toxic. To this day, Vietnam is still suffering from the horrible effects of Agent Orange. Veterans are also still dying from the cancers that are brought on by this disease. Jim Walker, a security guard at our school, was a Vietnam War veteran who just recently passed away due to a pancreatic cancer that was strictly connected to being exposed to Agent Orange. Vietnam and Vietnam War veterans are still trying to get compensation for the health issues they are dealing with to this day. If it weren't for the research conducted by Russell Betts and complied in his reports, there would have probably never been a document that could verify the U.S. government's involvement and led to this compensation for veterans. We would like to thank all Vietnam veterans for their sacrifices and service to our country. We would also like to thank them for speaking up and sharing what happened and their efforts to hold our government accountable for these actions taken during the war.